or is it Sam?
I think it's Sam,
Okay.
actually.
All right. How have you shown in your past experiences with the OCRF that you're committed to the chapters?
Traveling around to chapters. I didn't just start traveling around to chapters as of recent. Last fall, I traveled around to, again, about, I can't think of the final number off the top of my head, but it was around 12 to 15 chapters, again, 8,000 miles around the state. There were days where I was able to hit 2 to 3 chapters, making a zip line from, UC had their meeting at 4, and Columbus's meeting was at 8 that night, things like that, where I was able to make a zip line across the state. So 8,000 miles across the state. I've been to the chapters. I've been there visiting last fall. That is one way that I've shown that I've committed. I've spoken with a lot of the chapter chairs on the phone. I speak with a lot of them weekly or every other day, and I just remain in constant and consistent contact with them. A lot of them call me for advice on things, so they know who to call. They know that I visited their chapter.
I think chapter relations are very important between OCRF and chapters, and as executive director this year, it would fall on me a lot to be the one that reaches out to chapters. My very first, responsibility when I was appointed as executive director, I told Burton I want to make this, we had this huge list of chapters, and I wanted to go through it and figure out who was still in as chair, who was still active. So I went through and called through, Facebook, stalked you guys a little bit, emailed, whatever I had to do to get you guys on the phone, to get you Facebooking me back, because everybody responds differently. You can't expect everybody to answer the phone, everyone to text, everyone to tweet. You have to figure out which chapter responds to what best. So I spent my whole month of May and June doing that this year. And then whenever we'd have board meetings or we had special convention, I was the one who was reaching out to chapters. I was the one, we could do an alternate plan. That was Tyler and I's doing, was helping you guys create that alternate restructuring plan. So I think it's very important that chapters have a say and that they're communicated with, and I've spent a lot of time doing that this year, and I'll continue to do that.
Good question. Excluding volunteer work, such as phone calls, donor canvassing, or volunteer canvassing, and door-to-door, what campaign experience do you guys bring to the chairmanship for OCRF?
While I have not been paid for my campaign experience, I find it very rewarding to volunteer for campaigns at the local and state level. I've worked for Bill Johnson Leads, volunteering with them, making phone calls. Obviously, I didn't get paid for that, but I have jobs of my own that don't require politicking, and I really enjoy just helping out my county party, my local party, and my state party. And I'm very busy building up Marietta, so while I haven't worked for a campaign, I've given a lot of my hours towards campaigning.
Same with me on both ends of working for campaigns and volunteering. First got my start when I was at GW. I went to, actually when I first came back to Ohio from GW, went out to Bob McDonnell, I think with a couple of you guys, and did some voter contact work for him out in Virginia. Made some calls for New Jersey Governor Chris Christie. I've been down to Georgia in 2008 in the runoff election to help elect Senator Saxby Chambliss. In early 2010, I did some fundraising work for Chuck DeVore, who ran a primary race against Carla Fiorina out in California. Worked for Issue 3 last fall. Politics is my life. I do a lot of campaigning, do a lot of volunteer work for it. And some of you remember last year, I was with you at your chapters, making phone calls and going door to door with you.
So no actual campaign experience other than essentially volunteering. Have any of you gotten paid to do any kind of campaign volunteering?
Aside from volunteering, there's a fundraising I did for Chuck DeVore out in California.
And you receive compensation for that?
Yes.
Got it, okay. And I think I interrupted this gentleman, so if we could take this guy, I'm sorry, man.
Oh, that's no problem. My question was, how do you specifically plan to utilize the regional directors?
That's a great question. That was one of the main points in the restructuring plan that I was really championing for. You can look at Georgia and Pennsylvania. They have regional directors. Well, in Pennsylvania they call them caucuses. But they utilize them well, and I think we can utilize them here in Ohio just as well. I think that one of the biggest goals of the regional directors under my administration will be to ensure that communication is kept up between the board and the chapters, because you'll be in on the executive board meetings, which chapters currently have no transparency, and you guys have no idea what we talk about in the executive board, and I think you should. So that'll be one of the things to communicate to the chapters what we're talking about when we're not having state board meetings. Secondly, you are to go to your regions, hopefully, and help them with activism, help them with communicating with each other, and hopefully planning at least one large event where all the chapters in your region can work together per semester. So I think that would be a great use of regional directors.
In 2010, when I was field director, essentially transferring that one job into 5 regional directors across the state. They'll be used a lot to work directly with the 8 or so field reps we'll have. They'll be on the phone with them daily, making sure chapters are out making phone calls, as well as being on their campuses and recruiting, and essentially helping them run the chapter and kind of being a liaison for the state federation and even the national committee, and helping out in any way they can.
Do you want me to come?
Sure.
Okay.
How will you balance school and other activities as well as your OCRF chair duties if elected?
What a great question. Not a lot of my Merit SCRs are here tonight. Kristen is, and she could attest if she was speaking to my wonderful time management skills. I'm not trying to toot my own horn, I promise you, but it is one area that I really succeed in. I'm in a sorority, I have 2 jobs. I'm the college Republican chairwoman. I play 2 sports, I'm a cheerleader. I do student senate. I do a lot of things on my campus on top of being executive director of the OCRF, and it's just something I'm really good at. I will always make time for people. I can always call people back, and it'll be my senior year next year, and I'm cutting back on a lot of my Marietta stuff, and I'm really looking forward to leading the OCRF and ensuring that we make Barack Obama one-term president next year, that we paint Ohio red. So that will be my first and foremost priority next year, and I hope to deliver.
OCRF has essentially kind of became a full-time job for me. I've been blessed enough at Sinclair and down in Dayton to be able to take online classes, which frees up a lot of time for me. So if I'm having to go to a chapter at night, I can do an assignment the other night. So you can see my performance over the past year and how I've been able to visit so many chapters and still keep on top of my schoolwork.
I've got a question real quick.
Can we yeah.
Thanks. Are you committed to remaining impartial on the ORP chairman's election this upcoming second committee vote?
Can you repeat that?
Are you committed to remaining impartial in the ORP chairman's election and upcoming central committee vote?
As a federation, yes. Personally, it's no secret who I support. I'm very in support of the governor. He's brought us to the #1 in the Midwest for job creation and #5 in the nation, as we were in 48th. But as a federation, yes, we are absolutely remaining impartial.
I will definitely remain impartial. I don't think it's my job to force an agenda on the OCRF, and I will not be doing that. In my personal life, I support Republicans in general, so when the time comes, I will make a decision that's best for the Republican Party, in my opinion.